Would like to invite our next speaker is Katarzyna Gębarowska, who is a researcher of the history of photography and curator of photographic exhibitions and a book publisher. And in her research work, she focuses on vernacular photography and her story. She has curated exhibitions Eras and Thanatos, the women pioneers of professional photography in Bydgoszcz in 1888-1945 in 2019, and Looking from Above, the photographic archive of Wanda Rudzkiewicz. She co-authored several books on women photography. Since 2015, she's the director of Vintage Photo Festival. And from the last year, she also works as an assistant at the Faculty of Fine Arts at the Nicolaus Copernicus University, Poland. Floor is yours.
The microphone. Hi, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference, Maria and Anna and all of you. I'm very honored. So let me begin. Our today's topic, Forgotten Labor, revealing the significance of women's role in Poland's photochemical industry. I hope this is a new topic for most of you. As the paradigm of people's history has grown in prominence in recent years, the importance of including women's perspectives became ever clearer. For many years, women's history was the history of the elites, academics, intellectuals, social activists, and women representing the artistic avant-garde. The results of this research were often generalized to the entire women's community. In recent years, however, a growing need to write about the popular history of women in Poland has marked its presence. Some female researchers and curators in particular are increasingly interested in the fate of the underprivileged classes such as workers, maids, peasants, or sex workers. And today I'm presenting to you one of such stories, the history of Photon's female team, who built the post-war legend of Polish analog photography, Photochemical plant, the largest Polish manufacturer of black and white and color photographic paper. But let's start from the beginning. Women were involved in the photographic industry from its very beginning. As you can see here in the picture, women used to work already in the albumen print industry that dominated photographic practice from 1855 to about 1890 and remained in use in various forms through the 1920s. Since its manufacture was a refined handicraft, an enormous industry grew up around it, employing thousands of workers, mostly women, who broke eggs, beat the whites, and floated the paper on the albumen solution one sheet at a time. Another area for cheap working force in the photographic business was retouching and coloring, which were common practices for women working in photographic studios in the 19th century. We can observe this phenomenon in a studio photograph taken in Pavlograd, Ukraine, around 1900. The group photo that depicts a genre scene from the Belikov photographic studio. The photograph appears to showcase the studio's splendor to potential clients, and the patriarchal division of labor is clearly evident. Young women are responsible for retouching the photographs, while men are involved in producing the images and approving their quality. As technological processes changed and the dry gelatin plates were introduced, women began to be employed more frequently by printing enterprises such as Kodak or Ilford. It was the women who work in the photochemical industry who played a key role in the production of photographic materials such as film and photographic papers. Many of them were involved in chemical processes, packaging, and quality control. In some cases, they may also have worked in research laboratories where new photographic technologies and products were developed. Although this work was difficult, it had a significant impact on the development of photography and film industry. We know little about the conditions under which these women worked, the employment of women in the photographic industry and the specific operations that they were assigned have not generally been considered worthy of analysis by photographic historians. However, many of these jobs must have involved prolonged exposure to dangerous chemicals in poorly ventilated rooms. This is why I decided to pick up the topic of the forgotten labor of women in the photographic business on the example of Photon Factory, which luckily happened to be in my hometown where I lived and worked, so it was very important to me because I could work with the local community of women. My aim was to present the Polish Photochemical plant, the largest Polish manufacturer of black and white and color photographic paper, with a new and previously disregarded approach by turning attention to the role of women in the operations of Photon. So first of all, some simple facts. The factory was established 100 years ago in 1925 in the city of Bydgoszcz, Poland, at the initiative of Marian Dziadkiewicz, a druggist by training, a smart entrepreneur, and a visionary. It was one of the first photochemical plants in Poland and first widely known plant of this type in Central and Eastern Europe. The facility produced excellent quality light-sensitive plates, photographic papers, and their processing reagents. During the Nazi occupation, the factory did not cease production. It operated under the German brand name Opta because the Germans decided it was too good to close. After the end of the war, the plant was nationalized as part of the state enterprise, Film Polski, and then operated as the photochemical plant Photon until it was declared bankrupt in 2007. So here you can see the products and the famous Photon mark. Some of you from the eastern countries, maybe you remember this brand. And here is the building, dilapidating. Okay. From the 60s onwards, the Bydgoszcz-based Photon enjoyed an internationally recognized reputation, exporting its products across Central and Eastern Europe. However, information about the plant's activities aimed at market expansion was much easier to find than details of the people who contributed to the success of the company. It turned out, after my research, that since the photochemical sector was classified as light industry, women could be employed there, meaning that they formed the core of the plant workers. In some peak periods of the plant, there were 900 women employed. Those women, previously confined to the shadows for years, came to the forefront thanks to the exhibition and its accompanying book that I wrote, Photon's Women, that you can see here. So let's start from the beginning, the research. First, when I came up with the idea, it was 2018. I started to look for some information about those women in the Museum of Photography, which was established in 2004 at the initiative of Photon's employee community, and it was in my city. I could find some photographic papers, some advertising materials there, but not really the names of the women. They were they didn't exist. So luckily, I found one of the former employees that she's still working in the photographic business in town, and I could interview her. Okay. And she later gave me some directions for other women. She contacted me with the director, ex-director of the factory, who was very helpful. And just to show you how difficult the research was, I'm showing you this location here, that some women we found in very interesting locations, like this woman, a former employee, was selling tablecloths at the local market. And she was very astonished that we approached her and wanted to talk to her about the life in the factory. Of course, I visited the ruins and the archives of the factory. I found some interesting materials, hand written and with some many interesting vernacular pictures from the factory, noted every day that was important also for women. Like to the right, you can see the International Women's Day that was hugely celebrated in the factory. And we also found some interesting advertising material, some calendars. Of course, women naked in most of the advertising materials of the factory. These pictures that I took were, they showed the presents that the female employee workers received every year for Women's Day. So a cookbook and tablecloths and some glasses for coffee and flowers. This is a typical flower for in the Eastern countries for Women's Day. Here this is a famous Polish actress that also was a face of Photon. But most importantly, the pictures. And which is the thing that I'm really proud of after this project is that the female workers who had been functioning for years anonymously were given faces by taking forgotten vernacular pictures out of their archives. And as you can see, all of these women in the pictures are signed here with at least a surname, which was super important to me. The found photographs show that these women were the center of the factory life. And the everyday lives of chemists, laboratory workers, accountants, and models contributed greatly to the factory and the industry. Much has been said here already about the gaze and how we gaze upon the other. And that is why what I found most important in these pictures, that mostly it was women who photographed themselves, and it was their gaze from within on their lives in the factory and things that were important to them. And there were pictures from 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, especially like picture like this, where you can see one of the women had their birthday, and they come with a birthday cake, and they just posed to one another in front of the camera, and on the wall you can see this actress for the official advertising materials, and these are the real women that really contributed to the factory. Here's another picture of them having to prepare the field for another factory, for a new one, because they expanded, they grew so big that they had to move, and also female workers were involved in this work. New technology and some excursions to training, for instance, in Orwo in Germany. And then some girls talk in the laboratory. And some official pictures. Yes, here you can see me to the left with the co-author of the book, my friend Małgorzata Czyńska, and all of the women that we have managed to interview for the project. I have to say it was not an easy job, and at the beginning it was not easy to convince any of them to talk and to contribute to the project. And the reason for this was very new to me. It turned out that most of the women, I mean not most, but many of them, they have worked in the factory together with their husbands. So they said to me, we don't want to quarrel at home. You know, our husbands were the directors and were the worked in the headquarters of the factory, whatever. You should interview them, you should talk to them, you know, because they will feel diminished if you only talk to us. Sometimes it was very awkward because the women didn't have driving license, so the men brought them to the interview and they had to stay outside of the room because I didn't let them in, because I knew that if I let them in, they will talk a different story than the story that I wanted to hear. So just as one of you said, women have access to women's stories, and that's basically how I created this project. But it was really not easy. It was really not easy. And even now, when I have a book promotion in Poland, sometimes the men come with their wives, and the women, the wives, are happy to meet. They chat with each other. You know, oh, you have new haircut. Oh, nice. And the guys, they want to, tell their own story. They are very unhappy that they don't exist in the book and in the project. And so even if the lecture is called like the hair story of Photon, they come and they speak. They want to tell the real story, like which countries were the most important in the export in the 70s, and all these numbers and stuff like that. You know, that was not the issue of the book. So here you can see the book in 2018. Unfortunately, it's still only in Polish, but you can see the pictures. In the middle of the work on the book, I decided to invite to the project also artists, Polish prominent artists, and you can see them here. Famous photographers such as Teresa Gierzyńska, Natalia LL, Jolanta Markola, all of them added a voice to the social archives of Photon because all of them work on the Photon papers. And as you can see in some of the interviews, they would say that the Photon was their love, and that, here I read, the enlargement papers from the Photon factory were my love, especially the matte Photon brom, plus various grades, which had a reduced density, which deepened the grayness of the print. It also had a different texture, being more rough, grainy, and gratefully accepted pencil, pen, ink, stamp, and aniline, as well as multiple exposures. To allow the viewer to feel its sensual matte finish, I backed it with gray cardboard. It protected the paper from bending, and the viewer could closely examine my work, even touch it. And here you can see the famous photographer Natalia LL, who also said that she worked on the papers of Photon until the factory was closed down. And apart from the artists, who actually were very, very curious about the book, and when it was at the publishing house, they would call me, is the book already ready? Because we want to know who made these great papers, and we want to meet those women that were anonymous until then. The workers didn't really care about the artists, but the artists were very interested in the other story. On our website you can see more of the pictures and more about the project. And last year I decided to take the project abroad, and we went to Timișoara in Romania. We called it the Extraordinary Journey of Photon's Women. We were invited to the Festival of Analog Mania, and I wanted to know if people still remember Photon, and it turned out they do. This is the professor of the art school in Romania, and he said mostly people would work on Photon, especially after their own factory, which is called Azomures. I didn't know it before. Azomures was closed down in the 80s. So as you can see, there are many undiscovered factories and many undiscovered women working in those factories, especially as we have found out yesterday in Italy, there is also one that needs to be rediscovered. Thank you.